You're listening to the Vint Wine Podcast, where you'll hear interviews and stories from around the wine world. From writers and critics to winemakers and sommeliers, we'll explore the people and businesses who are instrumental in shaping wine culture. Enjoy the show. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of 5 Questions with a Winemaker, presented by the Vint Marketplace. In these interviews, we highlight the world-class winemakers featured on our full-length episodes in a quick 5-question format. We hope you learn more about a new producer, what makes their wine special. Enjoy.
All right, we are here with 5 Questions with a CEO, Adrian Bridge of Taylor Fladgate. Thank you so much for joining.
A great pleasure. Thank you.
We'll jump right into the questions. The first one is, where are your vineyards located and what varieties do you work with?
We're a port business based in northern Portugal on the Douro Valley. And the Douro Valley is this remote area of northern Portugal. It's the oldest demarcated wine region in the world. And the extraordinary thing about Portugal is that we have a lot of our indigenous grape varieties. So our main ones would be things like Touriga Nacional, Tinta France, Tinta Roriz. Roriz actually exists in Spain. It's called Tempranillo when it's over there. But for us, Tinta Roriz, Tinta Caun, Tinta Amarela. So these are all different grape varieties that we work with in the Douro Valley. And it is a remote region. It's a region which has a unique climate. And the other difference is that where we live and work and bottle and do all that is down in the city of Porto, which gave its name to the wines. There are 3 cities that have given their names. One is Bordeaux, one is Porto, and the other is Jerez or Ferry. That's where we are, but our vineyards are 100 miles inland, the other side of a mountain range. So we're unusual in the sense we're in 2 locations.
And Adrian, if someone has never heard about port or about Taylor specifically, what's the first thing you would want that wine enthusiast to know?
I think that the great thing about what we do is that we've been doing it for a long time. We're over 300 years of a family business that have focused on making port and making quality port. We've learned a few things over the years, which I think has helped to ensure that we're making great quality. We bought our first vineyard back in 1744 precisely in order to safeguard the quality of the wines we were making. It's a fortified wine. It typically would be served at the end of a meal, but there are nowadays ports that are served as aperitifs, and there's a lot of fantastic work being done by mixologists to really bring port into the sort of cocktail scene. But I would look to the fact that it'll pair with all sorts of different desserts, and I would also say that it's tremendously flexible because although it's a branded niche of the wine industry, we've got extraordinary old tawnies, we've got young ruby ports, we've got late bottle vintage, we've got wonderful vintage ports, which you can drink young, but you can also drink them when they're 20, 30, 40 years old. In fact, I myself was born in 1963. I have bottles of 63 Taylor's Fladgate every year. Some years, I think the wine is aging better than myself, and other years, I think it's round the other way.
Awesome. This is actually a question we ask everyone, but it's interesting because you guys are the benchmark for this style of wine. But what are some regions or wine styles outside of the Douro that inspire you?
And I think Portugal itself has come on in leaps and bounds. I think if we look to where our country was prior to joining the European Union in 1986, people were really making very basic wine. A lot of it was being made by co-ops. And in fact, part of that came out of a law that was passed by the right-wing dictator we had in power for sort of 40 years, Michael Salazar, where he made it a mandatory law that a meal served in a restaurant had to be served with half a bottle of wine per person. So that led to volume thinking rather than quality. And yet, since 1986, the investment has come in. The real potential has been extraordinary. And whilst port was always one that was specialist and kind of niche and doing its stuff, now you're looking across the entire Portuguese table wine industry at some really fantastic things happening. That's locally, but I think the thing about wine is that once you have got the bug and you've learned a bit, you're on a journey of discovery. I'm tasting wines from all over the world. I wish we could get even more of them in Portugal, and whether that's the sort of great wines of the classic French regions, or tasting some of the fantastic wines being made in Napa Sonoma, or up in Washington State now, and having a chance to taste those alongside some great Burgundies. It's fantastic. But recently I was tasting some Chardonnays made in India and thinking, really? And yes, really, they are doing it, and they're doing it on the foothills of the Himalayas. They're making some things that are really super drinkable. So it's a journey of exploration. I think I'll never finish, and I think I'll keep discovering new regions and new things to try. So I can't really put my finger on any one specific one for you.
Now, outside of your 63 birth year, what are maybe 3 or 4 vintages that have stood out to you, and why? And so they don't have to be the best vintages, but they might be just vintages that you remember.
Yeah, look, a couple that stand out incredibly in the early 90s when I started to work in the business, when I'd given up investment banking, came out here in 1994. We made in 94 a wine that ended up being 100 points from Wine Spectator, and it ended up Wine of the Year. I think it's a fabulous vintage port, but actually I think the one we made 2 years earlier, the 1992, which Mr. Parker gave 100 points to for wherever it's worth. But that has an extraordinary complexity, and that's a really intellectual wine because there are so many different layers. There's so many exciting things happening in terms of the power of the fruit, the tightness and structure that is there in all the tannins, and yet those tannins are silky soft. It's this tension you have between the smoothness and the silkiness, and yet the grip and the structure and power and the elegance that you've got in the wine, and then layers and layers of fruit on it. It just is something that sort of almost blows the mind. And it's one of those things that you taste and you want to go back to. It's one of those wines that I will always want to go back to, just to as a sort of an anchor point in terms of what extraordinary wines can be. Over the years, we've had a number of successes, and in recent years, we did something very extraordinary, because normally we'd make 3 vintage ports a decade, and yet we made a 2016, a 2017, and a 2018, 3 years in a row. And it was tough when we did 2 in a row. Then to do the third, it was like extraordinary. How did that happen? It happened because of the attention in the vineyards. It happened because of the climatic conditions. But the interesting thing is each of those wines are uniquely different. And this is something we've never, ever done in 330 years of history. And then suddenly we were rewarded. And that really is the point. It is a reward because we never know when the next great vintage is coming. It's just that nature pulls it all together and we get it done. And fantastic.
Wow. All right. We'll have to check out each of those side by side. Looking forwards, this is our last question. What is on the roadmap for Taylor Fladgate partnership? What we have coming down the line?
We've done a number of things recently. We got ourselves into wine tourism, and we've got a wine hotel called the Yeatman, which is probably the quality reference in northern Portugal. That's opening its doors and particularly to people who love wine. Each bedroom is sponsored by a wine company, so it's a really more immersive experience, and it's got a 2-star Michelin restaurant there as well as some other restaurants. But the point is that it's a celebration of food and wine. Really getting people here, showing them what we're doing, opening up what we're doing in the Douro Valley. So there are vineyards you can visit. There are walking tours, just tasting activities. We've done things like we've got a chocolate museum now, which is a chocolate factory. It's a small bean to bar operation, but it allows us to do wine and port and chocolate workshops, which are super exciting. So we're really engaging much more with the sort of the customers and visitor and the travelers that we have today who are coming to learn and to explore, and really rewarding those people who do make the effort to come to us by giving them an incredibly memorable experience and therefore become ambassadors for what we do. And so we're really bringing that sort of wine and visitors all together. And I think that's going to continue. And certainly the excitement that it's generated and the feedback we've had from people that have come and their desire not only to drink port, but also Portuguese table wines has actually led us in the last couple of years to get into the still wine business. And so that's a huge new and exciting opportunity, which I'm sure is going to absorb us for the next number of years as we really take that on and embrace the potential that exists in our Portuguese table wine portfolio as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was 5 questions with Adrian Bridge.